All right, welcome back to Alabama Gristmill, your podcast on the history of Alabama and things, history elements that we've forgotten, but we don't want to forget.
No, we probably never even heard.
And I want to welcome co-host Donna Causey.
Hi.
Say something.
Glad to be here. Glad to see you. I hear you.
And yeah, absolutely. And this is radio, so we want to make sure we can't see each other. But
well, the word to see is old Southern. Come back and see me again, and I'll
greet you with a glass of iced tea.
Yeah, good food and glass of iced tea and all that kind of thing. Food in the South is important.
When we come to greet you in the South, it's a come see me again or come over to see me. We'll have a glass of iced tea. Kind of makes me think of, how popular food is in the state of Alabama and the culture of Alabama. One of the most popular stories on AlabamaPioneers.com was about food. What food was that? Do you remember?
It was the grits.
Yeah, everybody has their own opinion about grits, we found out.
Well, I'll tell you, there's 100 million ways to make grits. I can tell you that. From syrup to, I can't imagine syrup in it though. I'm sorry, I just have trouble with it that way. My favorite is butter and salt and pepper or something, but
I just stick with the basic. I just do the butter, like you said, with a little bit of salt. I'm good to go.
Not every restaurant can make good grits, though. That's what's really tough, even in the South. I mean, some people shortchange it and use instant grits and all this. You can tell the difference.
Oh, yeah. And my other favorite, I guess, if I don't want just true grits from the South, I like the cheese grits with bacon.
No,
that's some
good
stuff.
Way. Leave the cheese off. Occasionally, I will eat it, but I can't eat it in the morning. I like it maybe later, but I like the basic grits. I'm just old fashioned, I guess.
And then if you get one level more fancy, put that shrimp in there. Now we're talking.
Shrimp and grits. They call it like ice cream. Southern ice cream is the grits. And people from the North don't really understand our love for grits, I guess, but it's there. You can tell it by the way the people responded on the website, Alabama Pioneers. So.
Oh yeah, and let us know your favorite way of doing the grits. I'd like to see if that's changed from when we last did it. So let us know in the comments of the podcast, or you can send us an email, info@alabamapioneers.com. And that's the way you can communicate back to us. If you've got any questions, suggestions, or anything along those lines, shoot us an email or comment on the Facebook page, AlabamaPioneers.com. You can comment there, or you now can find us on YouTube and Spotify, and in addition to your favorite podcast player. So we're kind of trying to cover every place, so make it real convenient for you to listen however you want to. So
yeah,
that's kind
it's
of
all free.
That's your favorite part? Yes, it is free.
I look for free stuff just like everybody else, and it's
Absolutely.
all free to you.
If anybody has a product or a event coming up or anything like that, would you like us to mention on Alabama Pioneers? Or that's Alabama Pioneers website. But in addition to that, on this podcast specifically, just shoot us an email. Let us know. Help them promote your event or your product, your book, anything along those lines that you think would be interesting to our audience. Because we've been really excited about how many people are actually listening and downloading. It was a lot more than we could ever imagine. So it's continuing to grow. So we really appreciate our listeners out there.
What's fun is having, Alabama natives, respond and say they're enjoying it because they used to live in Alabama. They're a native Alabama. They're living maybe in Alaska or up north, or even in other countries now.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it kind of brings
amazing,
their memories back,
We've had listeners from Australia, Germany, all around the world. So it's pretty fascinating to see what kind of reach and what kind of interest it is in Alabama. Because all we're trying to do here is to bring out the history and some of the good elements of Alabama that people have forgotten about it, different first events of Alabama, the historical impact that people have made from the state, just a general culture that's kind of missing out there. So we're trying to cover that and bring that to life in a fun way.
And the story today is one that I really enjoyed about the early days of Alabama.
Yeah, let's get to that story. It's about the early days of justice in Alabama before it was a state.
When it was part of the Mississippi Territory. This one took place back in 1802, and you're coming into Alabama. There's nothing but trees trees and no roads and no woods and all. You have just woods everywhere.
Great wilderness of Alabama.
There was a lot of danger in doing that. So you didn't know what you were going to meet. Wild animals or Native Americans didn't particularly want us here. It was kind of dangerous. Then on top of that, a lot of bandits and robbers that were along the road that you would go along and try to take everything that you had. It got to be more and more the case around in 1802 when the Natchez Trace was open.
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, when you're traveling back in the day, I mean, you're looking at, you had to carry everything with you. I mean, it wasn't like we could go down,
no banks.
You could go down to the Walmart and pick up some food or some snack or clothes or whatever when you get there. It was like you had to bring your food. You had all your money on you. There was no banks. There's no nothing. I mean, it's truly, it was
no
a
stores,
Wild
no
West.
place, no hotels, nothing. I mean, you take out your whole house and just go down the road with it.
True sense of
and
the
have it
pioneer right there.
available to the whole world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, bandits could be a devastating, if not deadly, encounter. I mean, you lose all your supplies and everything, you're done. But go ahead. I mean, you said they were coming down the early Natchez Trace. Is that where there were a lot of people traveling?
That's right. A lot of people came that way, trying to make their way to New Orleans and all, and the river traffic to start having trade. Robbers said, "Hey, there's just an epidemic of people going here. We need to head down that way." So it got to be more and more bandits on the Natchez Trace than anywhere for a while. Mason was one of those bandits. He was really known as being a mean one from lower Ohio, and he had been robbing and murdering people up there for years, but he saw the area on the Natchez Trace is a good way to make fast money.
Basically, the Natchez Trace at the time was pretty much the interstate, for lack of a better term. I mean, it was like everybody
back
was
in 1802.
well-worn path to get through what became the future Alabama area to New Orleans.
Yeah, he did. That was a good target. And he came down here with two of his sons and some other thieves that joined in with his man, and they got to have a name for themselves. So, I mean, it got so bad that people thought he was attacking two places at the same time because his name was really popular because he was so mean and so hard. He would kill people easily. One time, a man of great respect was attacked, and he just barely escaped with his life, and the word got to the governor of the Mississippi Territory, and he offered a reward to get rid of Mason, dead or alive. Of course, that word got out real quick after that because it was such a huge reward. Everybody wanted to be involved in it. Mason was kind of laughed at it for it. He thought, look how important I am, but he didn't count on the people that were working with him, his co-conspirators, and they decided, that's such a huge reward, it'd be a lot easier, so we'll just kill him and take him in and get the reward ourselves, and we'll be set.
No honor amongst thieves, I guess.
I guess not.
I mean, hey, they sell out their buddy, and we're going to kill you.
Exactly. That's exactly what they did. They killed him with a tomahawk. I guess they were trying to make it look like a Native American did it or something, but they wanted to show they captured him and had his head. So they cut his head off and took it to the seat of justice in the Mississippi Territory.
That'll do it.
Well, it didn't work out so well for them, though, because when they got to the town, some of the people in town happened to recognize them as the robbers that had robbed them. And so they got caught and they were thrown in jail themselves.
And then justice was served.
Exactly.
Well, that kind of gives you the way law enforcement was in the Mississippi Territory at the time was considered the West. So you can almost say that was the Wild West going on.
Oh, it was. It was the Wild West because that's what they did. They said they were going west, and that's where they wound up with is the Mississippi Territory when they were talking about going west because that was a little bit of settlement there. So that's why they were headed that way.
Well, there's just zero law and order or civilization at the time.
Right. Everyone for themselves pretty much. But the lack of law and order, you can imagine people started saying, we got to do something about this. So there's a legend that came out of Madison County that there was a group of vigilantes that formed together. They called themselves the Captain Slick's Company, or regulators. That was kind of a concept that came from North Carolina when a similar thing had happened. And they would go and punish the robbers and so forth if anything got out of order.
So pretty much a vigilante gang.
Yeah, it was for local people too. I mean, if you robbed and stole your horse from your neighbor, they'd go out and attack you, And some of the punishment was a little bit more severe than was warranted at the time. They get pretty rough on them. One of them was real popular was the riding in a coat. You think, that doesn't sound too bad.
That sounds like you're riding in a stagecoach. stagecoach.
I know it. Well, this was not a stagecoach. The coach was what was called a hogshead. And a hogshead was a big barrel that they used for transporting tobacco or other crops.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I've seen those.
You just throw it in. Anyway, some people don't know what a hogshead is.
Almost like a big wine barrel.
Exactly. Well, on top of that, they drive spikes in the sides, before they put the top on with a man in it. And they didn't discriminate. They also went after women, too. So that's hard to believe. But anyway, they get that barrel and they roll it down the hill. You can imagine the ride the person had,
with the spikes.
Spikes in it and all that kind of stuff. So he's pretty beat up by the time he got to the bottom. But they didn't stop there. He'd get out. He had to carry the barrel back up the hill, and they'd do it again until they got tired of doing it, I guess. So it was pretty severe.
I guess killed them in some cases.
Oh, sure. And then they'd have 100 lashes. Well, 39 was kind of a popular number for lashes. I guess if you go to 40, they might have died. So they only did about 30, which you wonder why that number 39 got to be a common number that you'd see in news accounts. Because a lot of punishment was connected with biblical reasons, They branded, they cut off ears and cut off hands. It got to be kind of whatever they felt like doing, I guess. And some vigilante groups were rougher than others.
Well, I guess the significance of that 39, it's a biblical thing. And that and you had it right. It's like 40 lashes would kill a man. So and the maximum number given in Deuteronomy was 40.
Captain Slick, they don't really know. It's a legend about it, but they don't really know if there was a person named Captain Slick, because it got to be known, if you were going to do something wrong, you might get slick, thrashed, or whatever in towns. It kind of got out of hand after a while, because, if you get mad at your neighbor, they get the group out and go and attack the person that you got mad at. And there was really pretty severe stuff that was going on. In Montgomery, they had one, and they called it Captain Whip, I guess because they used whip to lash a lot of people with. But anyway, it went on. The punishment did work pretty effectively, though, because it would manage people from the community or either mark them for life. So people say, he's you got to watch out for him, if it didn't kill them. A lot of times it killed them. The punishment you received got to be dependent on the person you were and the status in your community. One situation happened in Mobile in the summer of 1835. It was kind of interesting, kind of brings out that point. A doctor and his wife had a 5-year-old child that was kidnapped, or a $30,000 ransom was demanded. Guess who took the child?
Who would that be?
It was his brothers. He had 2 brothers that I guess didn't make as much money and were a little jealous, so they came up with a scheme, and one of them held the child, and the other one went back to town and told the doctor that's what he was going to do, and if he didn't get the money, then they were going to kill the child, their nephew, believe it or not, and then the other brother would kill himself so he wouldn't be captured. Of course, the doctor, this is his family, he didn't really want people to know about it, and he thought he could handle it himself. He didn't have enough money. He didn't have the whole $30,000, so he had to go to some friends.
So he was going to try to pay him off.
Yeah, he's going to pay him off and just get his child back, Well, he approached his friends for the rest of the money, and that's how word leaked out. He got the he got it. The brother that didn't have the child tried to cash a check for the money in New Orleans. They left Mobile and went to New Orleans so they wouldn't be recognized. But the bankers got kind of suspicious about what was going on, because they didn't know them all, and they knew the doctor. They interrogated him, but he wouldn't say a thing. But he realized he was in trouble himself, and his other brother was out there safe and sound. So he made a deal with him. He'd take him to him if he could escape and all. He took him to him, and they did get the child back and all, but nothing was done to the brothers. The brothers were just let loose.
They just said, okay, here's my brother. He made a mistake. No big deal.
Right. Nothing to it. But if anybody else,
they would have been rolled down in a hogshead and rolled down the mountain.
Exactly. Rode down the mountain or slashed or something done to him, but because he was the doctor's brothers, they said, well, we got the kid back, so that's enough. So justice is kind of not equal.
That's the problem with the vigilante system. It just it devolves into that type of favoritism and different levels of punishment for different classes.
And that's really what was caused the end of it, because they got kind of out of hand. One man they gave 100 lashes to, and I
guess they decided to go against the Bible on that one.
I did. They went against they went against him and
went more than 40.
Anyway, somehow he wound up in court, and the people, the citizens of the town said, if they wanted it to be a fair trial. Instead of beating people up and rolling them down the hills in the Hog's Head, they were beginning to become more settled at this point in their town, and they wanted to do it right. What happened is a company of 60 or 70 men, well armed, made their appearance at the courthouse, and they were taking the one that was going to be on trial. Joab Hendricks happened to be his name, and they just went straight to the door, handed him over to the courthouse people. It was just a little log cabin courthouse, and they got all around the outside of it and linked arms, and the slicks came, and they were going to get him and go hang him or whatever they want to do to him, but they saw all that, and they just kind of skulked away and gave up at that when they saw they were outnumbered.
We're out of here. We're out of here.
They decided it wasn't worth it, and after that, it just kind of died off. I mean, it showed that the citizens were able to take back control of their...
Well, it's the importance of a civilized society, where they can actually control things in a nation of laws as opposed to just straight up vigilante system.
It served its purpose, I guess, at the very beginning.
Yeah, especially when you don't have anything.
That's why we're called a nation of laws, and that's why we need to remain a nation of laws. We can't ever get back to something like that again. It's just a kind of piece of history that I think it's good to remember. And I'd never heard of it before. I never heard of Captain Slick or Captain Whip. I think there were different ones at different areas of the state, different vigilante
different
groups.
Different legends in the time, yeah.
When the civil law breaks down, that's what happens. Vigilante groups rise up. But when the civil law takes over, then you get back to normal. So that's why hearing these stories is important, because we learn from our history what goes on.
Do not forget your history. Learn from it, remember it, because unless you do, you'll probably repeat it again.
And, the vigilante started off very well and good, but he started attracting the wrong type people after a while. So,
all righty. Well, with that one, we'll wrap this episode of the podcast of the Alabama Gristmill up. Like we always say, please share with your friends, family, and anybody you think would be interested, and we appreciate it. And until next show, we're out of here. We'll let Red Foley with Alabama Jubilee play us out. See you next time.
Goodbye. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Round on his toes, throws away his crutch and hollers, hey, let her go, oh, honey.